Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your listening and viewing environment. We are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio, where you can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships. Whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind, God is concerned about that which concerns you. And that is the reason that we are here with you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is brought to you daily by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer, where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you will save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Earth's finest water at FijiWater.com. And for those of you who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware, and those of you that have made a weekly or monthly commitment to support the broadcast by giving on the contribution pages of our websites at NewLifeMinistriesInternational.com and NewLifeInternationalCDC.com, and those of you that use the QR code or the link provided on Facebook and YouTube to support the broadcast, we thank all of you for your commitment and your support as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here for you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. So I want to remind all of our listeners and viewers, this is the last week for the June FijiWater.com sponsored promo. Go to our internet radio station, WKAPFaith.com. And the first three songs you hear at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the first three songs you hear, list them and text them along with your name and your email address. One of our listeners and viewers will be selected to receive a case of Fiji Water from FijiWater.com. And as you know, you asked for it, you got it. We are going to be going to a 1-hour broadcast in July from 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we're excited about all that God is doing to continue to move the broadcast forward, and we are looking forward to all of you being with us. We have received such an increase of viewership over the years that we've been on the air, and we are thankful to God for all of you who just want to discuss the issues of life. Life has issues. We all have issues. But the good news is we have a place where you can go and hear from God, daily divine direction. I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your parents had different rules for you and your siblings, boys and girls, and now you said your brother says your father does more for you and your sister, and it's causing some issues among the siblings. Okay, so let me walk you through this. I had to chuckle when I read this because, you know, I always told our children this, and I want to be clear about this. So just let me walk you through this slowly. Men, fathers, are going to treat their sons and daughters differently when they are children. We're going to build up our sons, encourage them to become men, and we're going to watch over them and guide them and love them and do, because now in this generation we understand how to love differently. And it's not just, you know, you get to eat every day and we keep you from getting wet. rained on, and you have clothes to wear. So, we now express our love. And we can do that because we understand it's okay to teach our sons that also. But having said that, we're not going to coddle our sons. We're not going to enable them. We're going to help them to stand up straight and upright. And we're going to allow them to maneuver a little more, because we know that they're becoming men. They have to understand how to become a man. But for our daughters, when they're younger, we are going to protect them. They're not going to have as much freedom. They can't move around as much as our sons, because there's a difference between men and women, boys and girls. What happens is that, the young ladies, the girls, don't feel that it's fair because, for example, your brother, I'm sure, got to move around a little more when you were growing up. But this is how the balance occurs. Because then when you become adults, although the father is still going to be protective of the daughter, she's going to get a little more flexibility. You're still going to be protected. Even if you're married, your father's always still going to be protective, but your husband will then protect you on a daily basis. But you're still going to be able to pick up the phone and get more out of your father than his son will, because now his son's an adult. He's had a little more freedom when he was younger than you. Now you get the benefits. So it all balances out in the end. And at some point you hopefully get to the point where, I know with our children, they feel like each one of them says that my wife and I, treat them better than the other one, or we like to believe it's differently. But at the end of the day, because they both are now saying that, we feel like we've done our job because it's equal. It's balanced out. Now, having said all of that, our children have a little more higher expectations of my wife and I, but I'll leave that for another day. But the point I'm trying to make is your brother now feels that your father spoils you and your sister, and feels like he doesn't really, do the same things for him that he does for you. But I guarantee you that mom is, because mothers have a different way of treating their sons and daughters. The good news is that you all are adults. You all are adults, and you have two parents who are willing to love you all three of you. You, your sister, your brother, all three of you. You have parents who love you enough to want the best for all of you. Your brother's just being, he feels like he's getting the short end, he's getting the short straw, but the reality is he had more freedom. So don't allow it to be an issue. And one of the things you can do is stop telling your brother everything your father does for you and your sister. He doesn't need to know that. He's a grown man. That's not important. It shouldn't be important to share that with him. Just let your parents do for each of you what they're going to do for each of you. And the reason is because your parents know all of you. They know what you all need. They know what you all want. And they know enough to let you all work for what you want, help you for what you need. But your parents are going to have a different relationship with all of you. But the great news is that they're able to love you all. That's the blessing. The blessing is that your brother had his time when he had a little more flexibility when he was younger and trying to become a man. And now it's your turn, yours and your sister's. Because the girls are always going to be able to get more from their fathers. They just are. Because until we hand you off to the person who's going to marry you, you're always going to get a little more covering, for lack of a better term. You're always going to be able to go to your father. Because we're your protector, we're your covering. Our sons, we're going to cover them. We're going to, for those of us who have a relationship with the Lord, we're going to cover our sons. We're going to pray for our sons, and we're going to do things for them also, but not as much, because we don't want to enable them. We want them to stand on their own 2 feet, and we just want to love them and be there for them if they need us. But our daughters, for fathers, there's always going to be something different. There's always going to be something more for our daughters than there is for our adult sons. Now, having said that, it's a blessing when fathers can have a relationship with their sons also. But that's just a different relationship. I will tell you, my son and I have a very close relationship. I love my son loves me. We have a very close relationship. My daughter has me wrapped around her finger. I'll just confess. And it's just because my son is married, he has a wife, and he has children. My daughter is single, not married, no children, and so therefore, I'm still responsible for her. She's an adult, she's successful, but I'm still responsible for her because I'm her protector. I'm her covering until she gets married. And then I'll hand her off to someone else and he'll be responsible. Listen, don't allow it to be an issue. Just remind you don't have to go down memory lane, but just remind your brother all those times when he was getting favor, he was allowed to do things that you weren't allowed to do because there's a difference between boys and girls. Now you're just benefiting from the adult relationship you're having with your father. Because it's real. And that's the beauty of it. And you all have 2 parents, father and mother. I guarantee your relationship with your mother and your mother's relationship with your brother are not the same relationship, because that's the benefit of having both parents in the household. That's, although you all are moved out now and adults, that's the benefit of having 2 parents who have raised you to be functioning adults, members of society. And that's the good news, because that's what every parent wants for their child, is to be able to know that when we go home to be with the Lord, it will be well, so that it can be well with our souls. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill. If you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill. T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers. However, before I do that, I'm going to state with clarity that this coming segment of the broadcast will be brought to you by PorscheAmerica.com. So if you are in the market for a high-performance automobile, one of the finest high-performance automobiles ever manufactured, go to PorscheAmerica.com. You will have the opportunity to virtually build out the Porsche you desire to own. And if you're in our area, you can simply go to PorscheDelaware.com, ask to speak to Mike Didio, who's the general sales manager of PorscheDelaware.com. He will have someone assist you in selecting the Porsche you desire to own. And if you are currently a Porsche owner and are just in need of service, go to PorscheDelaware.com, ask to speak to Mike Adams, who is the service manager at PorscheDelaware.com. He will have someone schedule an appointment for you, and they will pick up your vehicle at your home or office, drop off a loaner vehicle to you, and return your vehicle to you when your service has been completed at PorscheDelaware.com, the finest service in Delaware, at PorscheDelaware.com. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your mother and your husband do not get along, and you always feel that you are the referee between the two. However, your mother wants you to take her side and makes you feel guilty if you do not. Well, here's the one thing your mother is going to have to understand, and that is that you have a husband. So here's the reality. You're never going to take your mother's side, because when a man and a woman marry, they become one. So you're not only standing for your husband, you're standing for the two of you, the union. Now, if your husband's wrong, you may tell him when you go home that, just simply say, babe, you were wrong. And at some point, pick up the phone, call my mother, and just explain to her where you were wrong. And if he needs you to help him understand where he was wrong, just have a conversation with him, not an argument, just a conversation, and say, this is what I observed, and this is where I think you went wrong. When you explain that to him, he should then understand that he was wrong and explain and apologize to your mother. Because the reality is you all are going to have to get along. And your mother needs to understand now you have a husband, so you're not going to take her side. And personally, well, let me go a little further. There really is no reason for your husband and your brother to be at odds. What is it about life that people feel the necessity to be at odds? Part of the problem is people feel like they need to be heard. Sometimes you don't need to be heard. There are times when, I've used this as an analogy in a sermon previously. I may have said it on the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, but sometimes it's better to be silent and thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And basically what I'm saying is sometimes it's just okay not to feel the necessity to be right. It's not even necessary sometimes to be heard. You can have a discussion about something. Notice I said a discussion, not an argument. You can have a discussion about something. You might have an opinion, but if your opinion is not based on fact, there's no reason to feel the necessity to be heard, for your opinion to be heard. If your opinion doesn't have facts, if it's not based on factual information or factual experience, even though every experience might be different, you have something to reference. If it's not based on, let me give you some examples, and we'll all be able to work with this. If you wake up in the middle of the night and don't turn on the light, and you bang your foot on the edge of the bed, you have an experience. The fact is, it's going to hurt. If you break your toe, it means that it could cause injury. If your spouse then wakes up in the middle of the night and you say, babe, turn the light on, because you may hit your toe on the edge of the bed, and she says, I don't need the light, I know where the bed is, I'm not going to hit it. You gave her information, but she chose not to accept it. You had a discussion. She chose not to accept it. If she then bangs her toe on the bed, that's her experience. But the reality is, if you've told her that once, you don't have to keep telling her that every night when she gets up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom. And I'm using that analogy because I'm a man, even though you're a woman and you're saying your husband and your mother they're constantly at odds about things. Why is it necessary? So you might want to ask your husband that question in the car one day on the ride home or when you're at home. Why is it necessary? And then he has to be man enough to decide, okay, it's not necessary for me to be at odds with her because it's going to cause us not to get along. Now, your mother has to understand that you now have a husband. You're not going to be the referee and you're never going to take her side. You're never going to give your husband a foul because he's your husband. You may discuss it with him when you get home, but you're not going to take her side in public or in her presence, because that's something that you two need to discuss as a husband and a wife. Your husband's got to learn not to be at conflict with your mother. Right, wrong, or indifferent. So basically, we go back to being respectful. It's. So I'll use an example, and my mother-in-law, who, God rest her soul, has gone home to be with the Lord. We never had, and I know there are men who say they can never get along with their mother-in-law, but my mother-in-law and I were very close. We never had an argument. We've never been at odds. We've never, we not only were respectful to one another, me being respectful to her because she was my elder, her being respectful to me because I was her son-in-law. We were never just respectful. We had a bond of love. So it was, for us, that's all that mattered, was love. It was never about, I've got a difference of opinion than you have. We're gonna hash this out. We're gonna argue about it. None of that. And the reason, because our bond was based on love, which allowed us to respect one another, but it was never necessary to discuss being respectful to one another, because we had that love, that bond of love that exceeded. My mother-in-law loved me as if she gave birth to me as her own son. And so consequently, we never had to be at odds with one another. And we could have conversations. As a matter of fact, we had a lot of conversations, usually about education, usually about, how we could really improve society, those kinds of conversations. We ate together, we bonded together, we loved together. But we were never at odds with one another. At very least, your husband has to take on the responsibility of just being respectful, allowing your mother, his mother-in-law, to have the conversations that she wants to have. And he can discuss the details with you when he goes home. Well, he can't. I never had to have those conversations with my wife about my mother-in-law, but he can do that. He can have those conversations with you. He doesn't need to have them with his mother-in-law, and the reason I'm laughing is because I know, for us it was always a joke, because my wife felt like my mother-in-law had another son, or had an only son, because my wife came from a family of girls, and her father and her mother. But I say all of that to say, you just have some conversations with your husband. Help him to understand the importance of not only being respectful, but just not feeling the necessity to debate every topic with her. Even if she wants to create a debate. It's not necessary. It's not necessary to be heard. It's not necessary to give an opinion unless he's asked. And then he can pick and choose how much of an opinion he wants to provide. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Comcast Business. We all have need to be more effective and efficient in business. Comcast Business will give you the opportunity to do just that. Contact Eunice at Comcast Business. Eunice at 603-222-7706. Your code is Pastor Pope. And with a qualifying gig bundle, you will receive an $800 prepaid Visa gift card. Call Eunice at Comcast Business at 603-222-7706. Your code is Pastor Pope. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers. However, before I do that, I'm going to remind you that this segment of the broadcast is going to be brought to you by Under Armour Golf. If you are a golfer such as myself, or you're interested in the game of golf, go to underarmour.com, go to the search bar and type in the word golf. You will find everything that Under Armour has to offer to give you the opportunity to experience the game of golf. And if you are just in need of athletic gear or athletic wear to enhance your health and wellness, go to underarmour.com. They will have everything that you could possibly need at underarmour.com. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated your father died during COVID at age 64. You said you are having a difficult time adjusting to life without your father. However, you said you know that you need to get on with your life, although it has been difficult. So I want to say to you first and foremost, to you and your family, our sympathy. You know, when you lose, listen, when a loved one dies, and you had your father all your life, and he was a young man at 64. He's a young man. So you didn't expect him to be gone at this point in your life. And you're having some difficulty with that. Listen, grief is an unknown factor. If your father was saved, he's not lost. That's the first thing you need to know. He's in heaven. The second thing you need to know is that there's no time period for grief. You're having a difficult time also because your father was very active in your life. He was someone who, you know, as I talked about earlier, a protector. He was a provider. He was there for you no matter what you needed. Your father was always present. So you have a right to grieve. You're going to go on with life because every day you wake up and the day begins and God gives you the breath of life, you're going to have to live. So you will get on with your life. But no one can tell you how long you should grieve, not even yourself. When God gives you that peace, you'll have that peace. Your father has the benefit, the blessing of knowing that even though he has passed over to the other side, he prepared you to live life. He made certain that you were prepared for this life. You just have to continue living it. It's okay to miss him. You're going to miss him. It's even okay for you to still be grieving. No one can tell you how long grief will last. One thing we do know is that weeping endures for a night, and joy will come in the morning. We just don't know which morning it will be, but joy will come. Someday you will get back to your joy. We pray that it is soon, but you will continue living this life until you no longer grieve the passing of your father. You will only enjoy the memories while missing your father. Today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast 3D has been brought to you by Fiji Water. The Taste of Paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you will save money. at FijiWater.com. There is a Fiji Water promotion at FijiWater.com for the 4th of July. Go to FijiWater.com. You will find that if you buy one case, if you order one case, you will get 50% off at FijiWater.com, but you need to know the code. So go to FijiWater.com and receive 50% off on a case when you subscribe